Elon Musk is finally taking over Twitter, causing horror among the woke crowd and exaggerated naive hopes among the anti-woke crowd. In addition to Tesla's Twitter, tunnel drilling, and rockets for US spy satellites, he has no time to delve deeper into history and politics, so lower your expectations. Elon Musk's day has only 24 hours. If he now has the next big company to deal with, it's clear that there are many administrators, experts, and large investors behind him who manage all kinds of issues. He's the public face, and he talks on Twitter like an ironic sphinx, hinting a lot but rarely saying anything concrete. When he has a chance to elaborate, he expresses his sheer enthusiasm for America's military-industrial complex. So, sorry, my dear members of the Elon Musk Church, he is not the chosen one. He is not the one with a prophecy to restore balance to the universe. People long for these hero figures because it gives them hope, but the real hope lies in being able to assess people and empires by yourself, instead of other people coming up with ideas for you. The one public appearance that stands out is the conversation with Joe Rogan. Rogan came from lower-class America and worked low-paying jobs to make ends meet. He saw the American upper class as dark, greedy, and dangerous. The counterculture for him was popular rock music, drugs, and investigative reports on nasty secret government programs. He likes the rebel types. Elon, however, was born into prosperity. He attended Queen's University in Canada and the elite University of Pennsylvania. Although he was quite broke at times, he still came from a different world than Rogan and had very different relatives and connections. Rogan starts the conversation with a simple topic: Elon's new child. Elon added the number 12 to his child's already strange name, XAA, in reference to Archangel 12, the CIA's secret program to develop a new spy plane. He said the forerunner of the SR-71, the coolest airplane ever. Elon Musk's rocket company SpaceX is launching US government spy satellites into Earth orbit. Its Starlink system provides the Ukrainian military with a stable internet connection that can even avoid Russian jamming signals. For my books and my documentary on the military nature of climate research and the most elite scientific communities like Britain's Royal Society, I have been able to unravel America's military-industrial complex more deeply than ever. Elon Musk employs engineers from long-established elite universities and cooperates with long-established military personnel. In these circles, you find institutions like the National Science Foundation, which defined the Cold War. In addition to the secret programs for spy planes, nuclear weapons, and biological weapons, seemingly civilian programs were also pursued, such as climate research, although almost everything primarily had a military purpose. The family element had been gleaned from the British, so scientists within their particular social class could marry and look back on their parents' and grandparents' work for the military-industrial complex. This reduced moral concerns at work and the risk of traitors providing valuable secrets to the Soviet Union. This does not make the individual member of the military-industrial complex a bad person per se, but it would be nice if the person understands the bigger picture and maintains a certain intellectual critical distance from said complex. Because a lot of American technology not only served the purpose of destruction and US imperialism, but was even sold in large quantities to the Soviet Union. Does Elon Musk have such a distance? Can he reflect on that critically? Or is he too much of a fanboy for the CIA, the Air Force, the technology, and the community he's a member of? Does he feel like a character in a Tom Clancy novel? Can he critically question his own environment? Does he know his way around to a point where he can convey useful things to the audience? So during an appearance, such as on the Joe Rogan program. Or does it convey more or less directly a naive view towards the technological establishment, the military, and the secret services? Naming your child after a secret CIA project doesn't show a critical distance. It only takes a few minutes to read the transcript of Elon Musk's appearance on the Joe Rogan program. So you don't even have to spend that much time watching the video or listening to the audio file. You barely don't get any meaningful information out of this program, but you do get sort of a positive outlook in terms of the military-industrial complex. Most of the time, you get people that are either scientific or they are critical of the establishment and are independent thinkers. A lot has already been written and been said about the military-industrial complex. This material spans back decades during the Cold War, and most of this material is very, very left-leaning, very problematic. So you can't take the military-industrial complex as a universal argument to favor a socialist-type dictatorship or to favor the existing socialism in the Soviet Union. You can't call for blanket demilitarization of NATO while you give the Soviet Union a pass. Later in the conversation with Rogan, the Neuralink brain implants are discussed, and Musk shows sheer excitement at what's about to become possible, especially for medical purposes. If he thinks CIA spy planes are so cool and launches spy satellites into space, then he should know full well the military has long been targeting neuro implants. Has he been negotiating and cooperating with the Military Research Institute, DARPA, for a long time? Likewise, the military needs ever more powerful artificial intelligence, something that Elon's companies are already working on. For the establishment, this is not about the cool factor or about the benefits for the general population. Rogan is very light when it comes to criticism and concerns, although he is generally opposed to technocrats and powerful circles. He at least mentions the fact that not even ordinary computer technology is really safe from hacking. Somehow he shudders at the idea that people will one day communicate with each other wordlessly and precisely via implants, and that they will lose their typically human idiosyncrasies. But Musk only sees the cool factor. He does not seem to perceive the enormous risks. Rogan points out that the ordinary people are technologically left behind simply by the factor of prosperity and are therefore second-class creatures. Musk dismisses the criticism as well. Right around the 52-minute mark, Joe Rogan says, how do we make sure this works? Do we test this on prisoners? How does that work? Do we take rapists and poke holes into their heads? This is a clear reference to secret programs under the MK Ultra banner of the CIA, meaning the secret service that developed the coolest plane for Elon Musk. MK Ultra actually experimented on inmates' brains, used implants to sedate aggressive people, and even inserted wires into brains. A lot of details can be found in the very good book codenamed Archangel. I'm not sure if there is an English translation. This is a German book. Rogan is well aware of the MK Ultra revelations. Musk categorically denies the idea that the military-industrial complex could conduct human experiments for bad motives. Instead, he gives examples of how people with brain trauma could be helped. Rogan then generally asks if Musk is reflecting critically on where this all could be going. Musk says the technology would eventually mature and be tested by the FDA, so everything would be fine. So the exact same government that has kept so many dirty programs secret, that government is supposed to be the trustworthy good shepherd of us all. Sure, the medical field can be expected to take advantage of such technological advances. Things are moving on, but Rogan was after the question of secret, sinister purposes. For Musk, who combined hard work with the good fortune of being born of high intelligence into wealthy circles, the concentration of financial power is also not an issue in America. If he himself has good intentions, then he simply implies the same to others and comes up with standard libertarian slogans. He said, certainly the term billionaire has become derogatory in recent years, as if that were a bad thing, which I don't think makes much sense in most cases. But does he even know the unfiltered long history of the robber barons in the United States? How do people from the upper class marry each other and get government posts in companies? Insiders get help from insiders. Strawmen are used. Front companies are used. Scientists from the elite universities are assigned to develop the future successful products. Not even the multi-millionaire Rogan is fully self-made. MTV, Disney, Fox, Warner Brothers, NBC, and even mafia circles associated with the UFC were among the godfathers of his career. This eventually gave him the opportunity to start his own podcast without constant interference from corporations and boardrooms. However, he relied on existing major platforms such as YouTube and later Spotify. He would have long since had the opportunity and the means to hire staff for professional research, for his own infrastructure. But he has repeatedly made it clear that he has no desire to do all this organizational work. He and his assistant Jamie run the shop and then upload the recordings to Spotify on time. That's why blatant mistakes happened, like some guests on the subject of COVID. Rogan is simply underqualified and refuses to hire qualified people. For some Republicans, the Rogan Show has become a political hope because of COVID and its high penetration in valuable demographic segments. Even though Rogan leans to the left on many issues, the Rogan podcast is almost entirely an entertainment show. There are guests on MMA, music, Hollywood movies, or topics like Atlantis. Now, here's how Elon Musk used Twitter. He said, about 5 minutes every few hours. It's not like I sit on it all day. And then Rogan explains where he gets his information from. He said, my favorite places are the New York Times and the LA Times, and even I don't trust them 100%. It's so hard, meaning hard to get the truth. So what about nonfiction books? How about you buy a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand nonfiction books and you start reading and you get people that work for you to read them? Speaking to Musk in May 2020, Rogan brings up COVID-19 and Musk initially doesn't know what that is supposed to be. Never heard of it, he said. It then dawned on Musk that Rogan was referring to the pandemic, and Musk then gave superficial glimpses of what he'd overheard in the media. So he said, that's at least practice for something bigger, like a new Spanish flu, and I think that at some point there will be a big pandemic. As a result, we will develop vaccines against coronaviruses and other viruses that we didn't have before, possibly cures for them. Our understanding of viruses of this type has improved dramatically due to the attention they're receiving, so there are definitely a lot of silver linings here, which is exactly what you could read in any newspaper at the time. Musk declares with a libertarian slogan that this is a free country. People should be allowed to do what they want as long as they don't endanger others. If somebody doesn't want to stay home, they shouldn't be forced to stay home. And they're sick. But what if the sick person goes out and endangers a bunch of others? Musk, of course, has no answers to the highly complicated compromises that have become necessary. And this was, of course, just May 2020. He presents himself as a model libertarian. He said, apparently some people have this absurd notion that the economy is like a magical cornucopia, as if it only produces things. There's this magical cornucopia and the goods and services just come out of that cornucopia. And then if someone has more stuff than someone else, it's because they took more out of that magical cornucopia. Let me just teach the fools out there, he said. But it's not that easy. Many millions of Americans were born into relative poverty and do not attend high-level Ivy League universities, working 3 jobs to somehow make ends meet. And the cartel of the rich has no interest in fairness, but at best finds the red geniuses from the lower classes or the middle class to work for the military-industrial complex. The biggest reason why socialist ideas are still somewhat successful, biggest reason is not that you can actually just focus on redistribution from magic cornucopia. Most important reason is the chilling effect of corporate psychopaths and narcissism. Socialism in the real world is just overtaxation and overregulation. And this is a common feature of all kinds of regimes, even the so-called right-wing regimes of the past in many different shades. And don't forget, the American Revolution supposedly happened to free the people of the control of the British colonial empire. And this colonial empire was, of course, very, very right-wing, if you want to use that outdated term. The aristocracy and the monarchy was very widespread, and it was a very, very unfair system. The entire Enlightenment movement with democracy and individual liberty, that movement was a counter movement to the old status quo. So it's not as simple as dismissing millions and tens of millions of people, dismissing them as socialist fools. It's not as simple as that. And Elon Musk has no trouble cooperating with communists. He said, the thing is, American companies have huge supply chains in China, like Tesla, for example. We have hundreds of suppliers. So we know if they're able to craft stuff or not. China is back in full swing. Pretty much every US company has a significant number of suppliers in China. Tesla has about 7,000 employees in China. And 0 people died, he said, in May 2020. At times, Tesla also sourced the lithium for the large battery packs from China. These rare earths are often mined under dire conditions for the workers. I don't think these workers have any stupid concept of magical cornucopias. It's usually the international mega corporations that use magical thinking to hallucinate things, such as the idea that doing business in the Chinese communist dictatorship will eventually lead to China becoming free and nice and capitalist. Rogan has described himself as a social liberal and has said he supports same-sex marriage, gay rights, women's rights, recreational drug use, universal health coverage, and a universal basic income. Rogan said, I've never voted right in my life. I voted Democrat. I voted independent. I'm not right-wing at all. He also said, I've been liberal all my life. I just look like a Republican. Last presidential election night, Rogan announced that he had voted for Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. It's nice to fling Libertarian slogans around when you disagree with either the Republicans or the Democrats. But we're not moving beyond the two-party system, the two-party cartel, and that 50-50 equilibrium that keeps people in line. And it's not just a two-party cartel, it's also a ideological cartel where you have the choice of a few ideologies: left, middle, right, libertarian, and traditional classic conspiracy ideology. So don't just view Twitter as an opportunity for political gain. It's also a huge problem, not just because the other political side is using Twitter and these other platforms. No, this constant conflict in society is a problem. Because the upper class pretty much controls the entire political spectrum. And as long as you keep playing their game, you are going to lose. Every minute you spend on Twitter is a minute you are not reading quality books, which are still the best, cleanest source of information. Now even books have to be viewed critically and in context, like who wrote it, why did they write it, who these people are, where they come from. But nevertheless, there is a density in books, and you still find some outstanding books among all those that are offered. Book reading is incredibly important about all kinds of topics, and you're not getting real gain by engaging in these constant Twitter battles. The more you feed social media, the more these companies can train their algorithms. And don't forget, Elon Musk is busy with artificial intelligence and algorithm. They can learn better and better how people trigger each other and keep each other busy.